How's everyone doing? We'll sit here for a little bit. I was sitting in on the Paul Murray show and he had some technical difficulties. So I went ahead and fired up my system and decided to do a little bit today while Paul figures out what's going on with his system. So we got God Bless America. How you doing today? Happy New Year to you. Cozy Drone from Fort Myers, Florida. Welcome, welcome. Appreciate everyone coming in. It's good to go. Here we are, January 1st, 2026. And the first question I have to ask of anyone who's in the chat, who's been able to go out and fly, have your drones fell out of the sky? Because, you know, all the doom and gloom and the numerous amount of questions that have been asked across various social media platforms, you know, will our drones be bricked? Our drones will be bricked. Will this happen, that happen? And far as I know, as of today, no such thing has occurred, which I predicted. So, you know, I was never overly concerned about it, but others seem to be. So it is what it is. So can't can't complain, and is what I told people that these laws that has gone into effect, no more pending, but that have gone into effect, uh, is like I tell people, it's more about at the federal level dealing with federal funding more than anything else. There was no language in any of the legislation that has passed or gone through that was directed at recreational flyers, pilots at all. It was nothing going towards privately owned drones or already purchased drones. This was a kind of like as we go forward, the FCC list uh, consists of not authorizing new imports from any foreign company, as they put out in that sheet the day before, the 22nd. It pretty much labeled out not just DJI and Autel, but it said any foreign made drones, which covers just about any decent drones that are made on the planet. Like I say, at the enterprise level, which you know primarily where I'm at or going towards, I still use a couple prosumer drones doing my work, but primarily, uh, you know, everything is geared towards the enterprise level. So that's where we're at, you know, for the most part. You know, so can't complain. Life has not drastically changed per se, but like I say, this is a hard lesson for the drone community to listen, pay attention to overall. And I think that if people pay more attention to what is going on, uh, say my mic's really low. Let me bring it a little closer. Is that better? Off axis, is that better? Maybe by talking to the mic, it might be a little better. And so as I was saying before, this is a hard lesson that we have to learn to be a little more vigilant in our efforts. Pay attention more what's going on. Be willing to read all the mumble jumble so most of us can understand it for ourselves and not rely upon uh, others. And when I say that, we know how social media works. It's just like the local news works. If it bleeds, it leads. So basically, what I'm saying is bad news is going to travel 10 times faster than the real truth. So it behooves you as an individual and anything you do in life is that you should go out and find out for yourself. Take the time, read the information for yourself. Then you would know what questions that need to be asked. And no one is against trying to help someone, understand the information. But like I said, you'll be able to formulate a better question than what we've been seeing. And I know I get little thin skin. I know Vic Moss has gotten a little thin skin, and Ryan Lafayette has got a little thin skin, and some of the others have also tried to answer all these questions and all these social media groups of some very basic information that if you're really taking what you do, you don't have to be dead serious, but like I say, it's just like driving a car. You got to be up on the local laws, and regulations. And it's no different from flying a drone. And that's part of our problem is that too many of us take it as a toy, and we allow people to call it a toy when they're not. They're considered aircraft, and you are considered a pilot. And that's why I've always said about us doing what we do is that we are pilots. We're not just hobbyists, and so to speak. We're out there in the national airspace, flying, sharing the skies with manned airspace. So this is not about playing with train sets in the garage or the spare room or the basement. This is real deal stuff. You're out there and there's rules and regulations that we have to abide by. So it is beyond, best for you as an individual to be knowledgeable about what is going on to what you've been doing. So that's for your benefit. So like I say, today's the first. Happy New Year, Mr. Flying Finn, John. Glad to see you here. Glad to see everyone here who has made it into 2026. I know my schedule's been kind of wacky. I've done a couple of video uh, marathons, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. I did one New Year's Eve into this morning, same thing. So if you happen to come into my channels in the last couple of holiday days, you saw a lot of the videos I've done over the years. A lot of those videos go back 6, 7 years, and gave me a chance to review some stuff and also clean off my hard drives. Like I say, for what I do for work. So it's like anything else. You got to start worrying about the the background stuff that you do. And for me, it's about cleaning up storage space. So what I did was, since this is 2026, went 5 years back. Anything that was dated 2021 or older got deleted. I figured if any of my clients call for something that's that old, that was basically shot, the Phantoms did good work, and they still do good work. But that's the main drones I was using back then were the Phantoms. So that's a lot of stuff that got deleted, and I no longer take up space. I did go ahead and purchase another 20 terabytes of external space, which should be here by next week. And these are the things that commercial operators like myself that we have to look at also. It's not just what we fly that day and do that day. It's long-term storage. And when you're editing footage, even if you are a recreational flyer and you plan on keeping your footage, you have to start becoming concerned with storage space and be able to organize the storage space. I know some folks do it by dates. For me, because I do work for others, it's always best for me to do it by location. Because that's what I'll remember it by more than anything else is the location and possibly dates after that, especially when I start going to sites uh, that I do multiple visits. So I'll make a main folder of that location, and each time I go, each month that I go back and repeat the service, there'll be a subfolder under the main folder showing that date. So that's one of the main things. How you doing, Neil? Good to see you here. And I can say, make sure the equipment is working properly. And you say my mic is low as heck. Somebody else said it was better, and I don't know. Maybe I crank it up a little more. Is that even louder now? Okay, calculate it whatever you have now plus 1 terabyte. I'm not very good at math, Warren. So like I do when I go shopping, I buy in bulk. So like I said, I have a total currently I have a total of 24 terabytes, uh, and they're broken up. One's 18 terabyte drive, the other one's a 6 terabyte drive, and I just purchased another 20 terabyte drive. So, and then all of my stuff gets backed up on a NAS a system for my entire house that has that all my phones, photographs, and stuff all get backed up to all the music that I have is stored there also, besides their own little smaller hard drives. Everything gets backed up to that NAS system in my house. So just in case of electrical storms or anything like that, I have multiple layers of backup. So I hopefully will never have to really have to recover too much because I have several layers of backup for the most part. And going from there. Okay. How are we doing, Waypoint, New England? Good to see you guys here. Like I said, I know it's been kind of sporadic. Everybody's been coming on live, off and on, for the last, especially 48 hours. There was no Drone Nation on Monday night. I believe Bill had a repeat show on Tuesday nights. And like I said, I just did a marathon video thing on Wednesday night. I believe it was into the morning, or maybe it was this morning. I did another one. Same thing last week. But today I want to go ahead and do a live stream talking about some actual issues. If you guys have any questions in the chat, feel free to ask me. I got my camera on loop here as I am charging. Let me see here my auto switch. Let me check something here real quick. Okay, let me disable that quickly. Okay, everybody's there. Loop. What was that? 4 minutes USB 2. Okay. All right. So the format's not really set in stone per se. So I'm kind of playing things a little loose here. Oh, Mr. Bud Beaver. What's going on, Bud? How's life treating you, buddy? Okay, so here we go. Boom. There we go. So we're just kind of playing things a little fast and loose. If you guys in the chat have any questions about anything that I do, how I do it, more than happy to talk about it. I didn't want this to be another big rant on legislation that has already gone to action. Let's let you know what's going on. I am charging batteries per se, like I say, updating my equipment. Over my right shoulder, you will see my Power 1000. Let me turn here a little bit. It's I was charging some batteries off of that. It has the power bank sitting on top of it. We keep it going. Another camera. Let me slide. Okay, I got it on automatic rotation, so we'll see what's going. I have another Mavic 3E set of batteries charging, and it's 3 battery port over here on the floor. And then on the light below that are the how many of those? 8 batteries for my M30T that I charge. So yeah, there's been some maintenance going on at Recovery One drones today, and that includes controllers, updating all my air data from flights for the most part. And that's something we're going to talk about tonight. Uh, and stuff like that. Can I do something about getting some warmer weather here? Well, you know what, Bud? Right now, well, you're going to probably say that ain't nothing. It's a wet 58 degrees here in Southern California. We're supposed to be getting, I know last night it rained pretty good. We got some pretty good rain last night. We're supposed to get another 3 to 5 inches within this next 24, 48 hours. So that's always what we look at around here is the amount of rain. We need the rain. I never get upset about when it rains, but like anywhere else, you don't need it all at once. I wish we got a little bit of rain over our summers like they do in other places of the country, where we get a storm maybe once a month, and it would relieve our quickly amounting drought conditions. So someone was saying, will this cancel our drought? California needs about 5 to 6 years of really wet winter storms for us to be completely away from drought conditions. You know, one of our biggest problems here in Southern California is we have not really put our money where we should in trying to capture as much water as possible. You know, there you go, Warren. 5 inches of rain in a short period of time at my house means I have to turn on a pump in the basement. Right. See, that's what I'm saying. Here in California, you know, it's very rare to find a house with a basement, first of all, especially Southern California. So basically, the biggest thing we worry about is mudslides. It's not the actual water itself, it's actually being flooded. What the water brings. And over the years, especially I would say since the 90s, with a lot of housing that's been built, and in other places around where you hear the term 100-year flood zones, they have built whole communities in these 100-year flood zones. You know, place hunching their bets that it will never rain that hard, and so there's no real threat of a flood. Well, that's it. When you get a lot of rain in a short amount of time, you get mudslides. And all that debris, mud, dirt, rocks. You know, it's almost like you guys talking about getting snowed in, where you open the door and it's up to snow. That's a whole nother deal. You know, you kind of dig yourself out. So that's what we deal with here in California. I tell people when I bought my house some 30 something years ago that I bought my house brand new off the dirt. It was on a development. I looked at the plans, and like I said, I picked the house. I don't have a I'm not that my house sits on a high hill, but it is on a slight incline, and I picked the house at the top of the block for that reason. That way, two reasons. One, flood situation. Okay, don't have to worry about no flood. I'm at the top of the block, so all the water's going down here. Two, sewer backups. Same reason. Most of your sewer systems that you have runs on gravity. So the first person who gets a backup is the one that lives at the lower end of the street. His house will back up with sewage before my house would, and that's about 8 houses down. So, and that's why if you ever see pictures of around my house, I have no trees in my front yard for that same reason. I don't want to have no root issues messing with my lateral from my house going from my house to the main sewer line out in the street. Because in most places, like here where I live at, the owner is responsible for that lateral. So if you get roots that crush your pipe, you get root intrusion in the pipe, which slows down flow, and you get a backup in your house, you are responsible for calling a plumber, getting that thing dug out, reconnected, and going from there. So that's why I say it's you know kind of like you gotta be that forward thinking at times. And like I said, I never had a issue. Dinner time calling. All right, bud. Well, I guess it is about almost 6 there, after 6, almost 7. It's about dinner time where Bud's at. You enjoy yourself, partner. And, okay. So that's kind of philosophy I have of, looking at properties. I have a few other houses and everything else, look at properties. And that's one of the things I look at. Never buy a house below grade, and I know a lot of people, you've seen them where else, where the house sits below the street level. Big no-no in my book. Because a lot of times those houses have pump systems that pump their sewage up to the main line. So now you got two scenarios. If that pump goes out, sewage builds up, backs up into the house because it can't get out of the line to the main line in the street. Same thing, you get a lot of rain, all that rain goes down on your property that might came from your neighbor's property or come from down the block or something. So, like I say, that's just my philosophy. Don't buy a house that's below grade. That's that for most part. But what I will cover today is some AirData stuff. I know I talk about this. They're one of the sponsors of my show. And I just want to now that I'm just taking some free time here to talk about AirData. Okay. This is the home page. I did a flight here on the 20th of a big, large parking lot for tractor trailers. Okay. So we'll go back to the logs here and we'll pull up. I did about 3 flights from there. And you can see it shows you the flight pattern that was done. It gives you the date, time, name of the aircraft, the actual air time of the flight, 18 minutes, 40 seconds. Takeoff battery percentage was 97%. Landing battery percentage, 17%. And it gives you the Mavic 2 Pro. All this is long-term information. And it gives you some sample shots on what was taken and stuff. This is, like I say, when you have an area that has a lot of warehouse, trucking, transportation hubs and that nature, this is something that you're going to start seeing in your community, are these large trucking parking areas. We have about this size, we got about 3, I think 2 or 3 in my city, and so to speak. And when you get called out to do drone work, this is a company that actually is one of my first paying customers over 6 years ago, 6-7 years ago. And this is the 3rd job I've done for them. They're a general contractor unit out of Redlands, California. And that's why I say you do good work for people, they'll call you back. And that's how the construction industry is. They like working with the same people whenever they can. So I like the fact that, they called me out of the blue, right around, did this on the 20th, right around Christmas time. It took me all of about, I think I was on this site for approximately, say 20 minutes, maybe, I'll say a little more. I'd say maybe about 45 minutes actually, because I did use 2.5 batteries to do these flights and everything. So, and what I wanted to show is you start talking about what AirData can assist you with. Okay, we'll go back to the first flight here, and the first thing is you can look at your batteries. Okay, it'll tell you here this 18 minutes of flight. It'll tell you how many minutes your battery was actually up. What it would have done. 23.5 miles, 4.8 miles on a matter of that battery. Okay, now I'll look at the next battery. Okay, this one here, 25 minutes, longer in minutes, but it said I only got about 2.42 miles use out of that battery. Now the third one, the last one, and here, 26 minutes, about 4 miles on that battery. Okay. So that's why my reason I talk about this is simply because when you hear other reviewers, content creators, and even in Facebook groups, when people start talking about, well, how much time does your drone give you? How long does it fly? And it may vary from battery to battery. You know, one battery, uh, not that one's good or one's bad. They're all good. They're all good. You know, if I go back and look at battery cells, you know, that's the first one. That's the second one. That's the third one. So they're all in the green. That's the big thing. So there might be a little variance in one of the cells. Like this one here has a variance in the fourth cell, but they're all in the green. But they all had different timing of flight and how far they could actually go on that battery. So that's information there. And you got sales graphs. If you're into graphing, it tells you. Like this one here had a big dip. I don't know why. It dipped like that. Right after it took off, about a minute and change into it. It had some kind of power dip. You know, so this one, it was consistent the rest of the way through. Didn't affect anything how it flew, as far as what I knew, you know. But this allows me to get an idea of what my batteries are doing, other than seeing the green lights on there. Okay. The sensors are all green. It gives you the control response on the sticks. And that's where you can kind of figure out if you need to recalibrate your controller. From there, you got the actual weather. You see I had hardly any wind, 1.3 miles per hour, so there wasn't no wind situation there. Sunny day, 64 degrees, no problems there. And let's go back to general again. And but this is the one thing I was looking at today as I was checking on my stuff. And that's one thing, another little thing that was added about a year or two ago on AirData was somebody says not showing. Let me yeah. Oh yeah, that's why it's stable. There we go. Sorry. Like I said, I'm running off of the mouth and not paying attention to the screen because I'm looking at a screen that's showing me this and not looking at the screen that you guys are seeing. So we'll go back. Sorry about that. Under the power. Okay. And all my batteries are in the green. Thank you, Waypoint, for letting me know. Like I say, you see 23 minutes flight time with that battery. Okay. Next battery, a little over 25 minutes. Third battery to 27 minutes. Okay. Now a lot of this goes by the actual flight time that I used it in. Go from there. It tells you the distance that's calculated that this battery can fly. This one's about 4 miles and some change. The next one was they only would have went to 2 miles and some change, and the first battery would have been back to almost 5 miles again. And I was showing earlier that the cells on the battery, all red and green. Okay, that's the first battery there. Okay, this is the second battery. No, hardly any variations there. And this is the third one. Well, yeah, it's still in the green, but you know, 3 different batteries, all in the green, but they do have differences, minor deviations, they say. And it says all good, no major deviations were found. And stuff. So, and like I said, sales graphs from there. You see how smooth that one is? And it has a few dips down here at the 5 and 6 minute point. And then I go back to the next one. This is probably what you usually see. It's a slow decline as the battery gets done, but it was fairly consistent. Now this first one had a weird thing where, you know, came down, and then it went up, and then there was a very, at 3 minute mark, a big drop. And then it levels out and goes pretty consistent to the end of the flight. So that's information. And I said, and how would you know which battery is which? It tells you which battery. It tells you the serial number. And just in case if the outer printed serial number is not there, you can have an internal one, and it'll tell you the date that the battery is manufactured and everything else that you need to know. How many times been charged? This last one's been charged 29 cycles. Next battery, 22 cycles. The last battery, 41 cycles. And the first and the last one were the two most consistent. The one in the middle had the weird information on it. Okay, let's get back to general again. I want to go to equipment. And okay, that's the smart control. I even have your smart control on here. As far as your equipment, tells you what the controller was. Let me see, overview. I don't want that. Details. I tell you exactly your GPS coordinates. Tells you the exact address where I was standing at. All that kind of good stuff. And it tells me the flight information. And it'll be the same on these for each one. That one even gave me the above sea level right there. All that kind of good stuff. So let me get back into equipment because I want to go to, here we go, up the equipment, drones. And this is something that got added last year in AirData, maybe a year before that, is where they have a direct connection with the manufacturers on your firmware updates. And we'll go here and someone will be updated. You can also see the last time you used that drone. You know, this one, last time I used this one was Mavic 2 Pro, April 22nd, 2025. Let me see here. Go down to my Enterprise Advance. I used that one last March. Last May 2025. I'm about to use that again. I picked up some more thermal work in LA and Orange County, places I normally don't go, but they said they are in desperate need of a pilot. And this is kind of like where I wanted to go. When I purchased this thing, I can tell you that when I purchased it, April 15th, 2021, I purchased this drone. Didn't have no experience with thermal work. When I purchased this drone, I wanted to, get experience because I know as a regular inspector, I was going to want to have a drone like this because I knew the work was going to be coming in a couple of years because California in its building code, just like we have you might see handicap parking in a parking lot, they have said the same thing with housing as far as once you reach a set number of houses, you after that hit that magical number, like in parking spots, it's 10. Once you hit 10 parking spots, then you have to put in handicap parking. I'm not sure how many houses, what the magic number is, but once you hit that number of houses, you have to put or offer solar panels on those homes. So when I see solar panels on houses, that's money to me. Okay? Because eventually, it's like your house is one of your biggest investments that you're ever going to make in your life. So if you got solar panels on that thing, you want to make sure that your solar system is working at its top level performance. I have a solar system on my house. I've had it going on close to 15 years, and I just had Tesla out here because they bought out the company who originally put my system up, and they had to do some work on it because I was not getting the peak performance that I should be. And in my contract with Tesla, I have a production clause that says if my system doesn't produce the rate amount it's supposed to, they got to pay me the difference. So, like I say, it's in my best interest. It's in Tesla's best interest that you know make sure that solar systems are on top of what's going on. You know, so that's a big thing there. Now, like I said, once again, the firmware on this thing, and it's kind of weird because when I fire this drone up, I always get a message saying, "Oh, new firmware update needed." And when I do it, it disconnects the controller to the drone. So if I haven't flown in a while, I have to remind myself, don't click on that update because it just disconnects the controller from the drone. Then I got to reboot everything in the system, then go fly and get the job done. But here verifies that I do have the latest firmware update. Now I go to my M30T, which is named the Judge, and guess what? This is the installed firmware, and there is a new one available. So I need to break that thing out because I haven't flown it. Let me see. Last time I flew it, August 23rd of last year. Last time I flew it when I did some warehouse work. I think it was a couple Amazon buildings I did in the last summer, and that's the last time I've had it out. So there is an update. So before I take that thing out, I will make sure I do the update like I had to do with my Mavic 3E today. Because I heard they were doing some updates for the enterprise line of drones. So when I got my to charge the batteries for the Mavic 3E, I turned the controller on. Sure enough, when it goes to its update, or not update, when it goes to its login, it says, "Hey, there's an update, firmware update." So there it is. I had to update that, and that was this one right here, and which I updated it, which is probably the same update that's for the Judge. Let's see, what's that? 1401.0002, and this was 1403.0110. So there's a slight difference. So this is the one I update today. I say last time I flew this one was November 13th of this year. And from there, let me see the Reaper. That's almost 2 years since I've flown that. I think that might have been one of the ones I gave to the PD. So it's not there. I think let me see. Vector 2, 2025 May, Scrammer, July, Tracker. That's the Tracker was November 24th. That's the Mavic 3M. When I took that out to Coachella area in the desert and did some crops, mapping of some crops. So like I say, that everything's up to date on that one. No problems. Let me see, that one's gone. And this is the one right here. For this one, this is the one I used on that parking lot, December 20th. Right there. How you doing, Nunya? Appreciate you coming in. And I see TJ's been around. Hey, TJ. So, like I say, there's a lot of things that can help you out. A lot of information in this program. And just to remind everyone, the very basic version is still free. If you use my promotional code Recovery1Drone20, for the first time you use it, if you sign up for a year plan, it'll give you a 20% discount. So I think the regular cost is $160. Or a basic plan about $100. I have the pro plan myself, and it's 160 something. I think the regular plans are a lot cheaper than what I paid for. But and the same thing, that you can look at your batteries itself. The TB30s, Phantom 4 batteries, Mavic 3 batteries. And on the plan I have, it will keep track of, I want to say 16 batteries, 16 or 20 batteries it will keep track of for me. So there is a lot of information that can help you out with this program overall. It keeps stats of all your different things from longest flight, 31 minutes, to hottest battery temperature. Says here 211 degrees. Now, I think this was when I think I had a bad battery in my Mavic 3. I think it might have been. Yep, Mavic 3. Back in I think I was back in 2023, 2024. Yeah, 2024 was this one. And let me show you the battery. I hear it says here 70 minutes. The battery. That's why I said it's bad battery. The numbers are off the chart. This one said it would have flew for 70 minutes, up to 22 miles. Well, we know that ain't the case. It was a bad battery, even though none of the cells show it being bad. The sales graph doesn't say nothing there. Let me see the volt amps. Is that the job I was on? I said Redlands. Yeah, I think that was the first time at Redlands where it did that. I brought it back right away after a quick run. Yeah. But yeah, I got a warning on the controller. And when it sends you a warning, you'll get the warning on your controller right away. And if you set it up properly, it will even send you an email to your email account. So you'll get it later on also, showing that something is wrong. But yeah, I took off at 98%, brought it back at 90%. But there was something odd. I got the warning with the battery, and I brought that sucker right back in. So yeah, you got to be careful about that kind of stuff all times. Yeah. Let me see here. Anything still charging? Yeah, that's one of the Mavic 3 batteries on top charging, and below that on the lower part of the screen and the bottom, those 8 lights go to the TD30s there, and for that part. And then, like I said, that's a picture of the 1000 and the power bank 2000 where that's at. So, yeah, that's some good stuff there. Let me go back to where I was at. There we go. Yeah, hard. Sorry to hear that, Nunya. 50K in a house, man. As I say, your house is your biggest investment. And sometimes, like I say, mine's 30 something years old now. And I can tell my wife when I retire in another year or so, one of the things that we're going to have to put in is going to be a new furnace. You're going to have to put in a new furnace because, I mean, the current one's over 30 something years, and, it is what it is. You got to go from there. So that's part of the life of owning a house. And like I said, this year I had to put money in some other properties. We had high winds last year. Matter of fact, it was a year around this time last year we had the fires up in Pasadena area and near Malibu because of the high winds, and 2 of my properties had roof damage. So I had to come in and get some roof work done on those properties. And then one of the other houses I had to repipe. The existing water lines were just in bad condition, so I had to get it repiped. So like I said, I understand you're talking about putting in 50,000. I know that feeling all too well. Yep. Let me see who else has came in since I last checked. Like I said, TJ, I saw him. Nunya. I guess Bud went to go eat, and a few other folks. Okay. Like I said, if anybody has any questions or any topics they want to talk about, throw them in the chat. Let me know so I can, we can address it together. Talk about this is kind of like a footloose and fancy-free session. So we want to try to make sure that we are, just hanging out today. That's the big thing. We are just hanging out today, and having a good time. Like I said, a lot of the regular shows didn't come on this week, so I'm trying to fill in that void a little bit while Ron Brown and Marcus Crawford and DeMarco and Bill, Drone Reviewer, and a few other folks who knew their normal shows took a week off, and so like I say, as I with regular television programming, they'll resume their regular scheduled programming on next week. So I'm just filling in. What's up, AZ? How you doing, partner? So, like I said, we're doing kind of like a footloose and fancy free show tonight, AZ. If you got any questions, suggestions, or whatever, throw them in the chat and we'll try to talk about it. And, I'll give my 2 cents, which is about what it amounts to is 2 cents, and go from there. We just got to talking about some of the other features that are in Air Data and how I have used them, how they've helped me over the years. We've already covered a little bit on the legislation that was just passed a little over a week ago. And like I tell them, all of our drones still work. I know all of mine still work. I know somebody was trying to post a picture up a little week ago how they got this big red error message talking about their drone wouldn't fly, and then come to find out it was their problem, not the drones. But and that's why I kept trying to tell people in each time my show is that you know these legislations that are passing, or did pass, I should say, are went into effect. Were geared towards federal level, and when I say federal level, we're talking about the funding part. It does impact the import because, like I say, we're all got wrapped up around uh, the Section 1709, but we still need to address the Uyghur law, which is allowing our border protection people from stopping imports. Okay, because like I said, if you read into the information of Section 1709, uh, it doesn't cover imports. It just basically says the federal government will not be purchasing. You can't not purchase with federal fundings, grants, all those kind of dollars, and everything else. And that's why that stuff on the 22nd came out talking about, once again, you can't use federal money, no matter what shape, form it comes in, to purchase accessories, parts, all that kind of stuff. But I don't believe, or maybe if I missed it, did it say that the federal government or the U.S. government is basically shutting down imports of said product. They're using another law that was signed back in 2021 to slow down the imports going on. Now, Waypoint New England put in the question, will you cycle through the batteries when they are charged or just let them automatically discharge at 60% when you're running down at 25%? What I usually do uh, on that is this: when I come in, I normally charge my batteries up again when I bring them back to the house for the day, and then put them in a case and then let them self discharge from that point till I need to take them out again, and just going from there. And that's basically what my practice is. So that way, none of my batteries are never at that sub 20% or even sub 30%. They're usually around 40 to 50%, maybe 60%. And that way, if I have to grab something on a quick go, whatever the case may be, I can charge it up pretty fast. Like I was sitting here using the Power 1000 and stuff, uh, using that little square brick, using that plugged into this, plug into the back of the drone with a battery, takes it no more than about 28 minutes, fully charge the battery and stuff. Now down here on the floor, on this one, it's the three battery charger there. I'm using the high powered charging system off of that charging case for the M30T. That's why you see the lights going by pretty fast. It'll take about an hour to charge 3 batteries on that and stuff. So that's why I say I don't never like keeping my stuff down too low. So I can say, and that's why just like any other type of battery, you don't want to let anything get too low, because then it may fall into sleep mode or something like that. And we all know or heard the stories of how people say, "Well, I haven't flown my drone in 6 months or a year, 2 years, been in the closet, and then when I pulled it out, the battery won't wake up and stuff." So never want to have that happen. So like I said, when I go out flying, I come home. As I take out the SD cards to upload that to the computer system, I'm charging batteries. And then I'll put it all back in the case, put the SD card back in the drone, and then shut the case. And all the batteries will be charged and everything else. So then they discharge. They only discharge to that between 40 to 60% level. And that's just me. And like I say, days like this, it's raining outside. Didn't have no jobs. Like I said, I got jobs lined up for this month, but it's raining. Can't do no thermal work in the rain. I'll tell you that right now. Okay. But I want to make sure I'm prepped, make sure all my equipment's updated. So on days like this, I charge up batteries. I sit here and twiddle my thumbs, and you know, I get to look at Johnny Drone Flyer 2 or 3 times a day because he's bored at home and he wants to go live about every other hour. So I follow Johnny around. Hey, how we doing, Space Invaders? I thought I saw Herman in there. Yep, Herman's in the house. How we doing, guys? So that's just my routine. Like I say, there's no special method to my madness. That's just my madness and how I do it. And like I said, last week I did the same thing and I charged up all of my Phantom batteries. You know, like you guys saw, I haven't flown my Phantoms since the early part of last year. So got all my Phantom batteries out, charged them up, and I probably charged them up sometime over another holiday weekend or something. I was sitting at home, and like that way they'll go back, they'll discharge back down to that 40, 60%, and then I will probably, unless I use that drone for some reason, I will probably, next holiday would be probably around February or maybe Easter time. I would spend a day charging those batteries up, and I have those big not big chargers, but they have the 3 battery chargers. One's made by Thor for the Phantom batteries. It charges 3 batteries at a time. Same thing the controllers. I think the biggest thing I use them for, because the DJI RTK base station uses the WB37 batteries. So I have a little battery crate on that. That way I'm able to rotate through all the WB37 batteries that I have. And I have about 6 or 7 of those in it, because I used to use them with my Crystal Skies when I used those. So I had to, supply those, and now I use them. Those I keep one as the main operating battery in the what is it, the Pro Plus controller for the M30T. You can use the batteries built in it, or you can use the WB37 as the first battery it would use, then use the other batteries, which allows that controller to stay active flying for up to, I think it's 6 to 8 hours, which is good, which is actually great and stuff, to be able to have that type of controller stamina. Because I know using my Mavic 3s, the controller itself is the Achilles heel when I go out on big jobs. And after about that third, especially going that 4th battery, I'm down to 1 bar. So a lot of times I got to make sure I bring out some type of charging brick or whatever to keep that controller alive. Because like I said, I bring 6 batteries in each case. And I think I had a job a couple of months back to where I had to use 12 batteries and stuff. So yeah, that's the only way I was able to keep that one going, was because I had a charging brick out there, and I connected to the controller and kept that thing going and going and going. So there's a lot of little ways to try to improve I say the longevity or the capabilities of our equipment. Sometimes it's just trial and error. Sometimes you just got to work it out. Because like I tell a lot of people, the client only wants to hear one thing when it's done. They don't want to hear no excuses about your equipment. They don't want to hear anything about no crashes. They don't want to hear anything about whatever else that could have interrupted the scenario. All they want to know is it done? And that's it. What's up, Blizzard? How we doing? How's life in the FPV world? I have never seen Joshua Bardwell put out so many videos in many days as the last week or so. And I remember trying to tell him, and even Grotbinder put out a video. He came out of hiding the other day to put out a video. And I try to, loop those guys in about what was coming down the pike. And basically, they didn't want to hear it. They thought they were going to be excluded from all this. They were hoping they were going to be excluded from all this. And now reality just sat in that a lot of this stuff is really hitting the FPV community hard. You know, so like I've always said, no matter if you fly quadcopters, FPVs, RC planes, we have to come together as a community overall, because in the FAA regulations, we are all lumped in together and simply looked upon as pilots. It doesn't say camera drone pilot, it doesn't say RC plane operator pilot, it doesn't say FPV pilot. It just says UAS. And under the definition of what a SUAS is in the FAA, is just a small unmanned aerial vehicle or system. UAS. That's for system. That's all it states. And the operator of that system is classified as a pilot. So this is why I say that we all, put down our differences and come together on common ground and be supporting of support of one another against a lot of these unnecessary regulations. And my concern is that now that we do have this type of regulation at the federal level, we have to be especially mindful of our state and local entities even being more restrictive. There's one thing that, I learned, especially in law enforcement. Like I said, I was a legal specialist in the military, along with being a grunt. Is that when I became a police officer and learning about the law, is that states can be more restrictive in their laws. They cannot be less restrictive. And the only time that has worked across the country is marijuana laws. And now the federal government is just, I say Trump's executive order, which could be overturned in the next president, has reversed that a little bit. But normally, the federal level laws usually sets the standard. And usually what happens is, or normally what happens is, states can be more restrictive, which when I say that, that means if the federal government says that the national speed limit is 65, a state can come in and say, well, the federal level is 65, but we're going to make it 55 in our state. Okay? Just to give you an example, because that's pretty much what happened when years and years ago, when they did reduce the speed limit back during I want to say it was an oil embargo, where they did reduce the speed limit down, and then certain states even took it down further in their area. But no one could exceed the speed limit above the federal level. So that's normally how it works. And like I say, marijuana has been the only exception, and even that, and with the caveat that those states who did approve it initially did it for medical purposes. It was medical marijuana, and then some have, over the years, over the last 10, 15 years, have gone on from medical marijuana to recreational use. I know here in California they allow you to grow no more than 6 plants on your property, and I believe they have to be indoors, if I'm not mistaken. You can't cultivate outside, but you know that's what the law states. But that may be changing now. Like I said, other states have different rules and guidelines, especially when it comes to cultivation. And we'll see where it takes us. Just go from there. But that's the little tidbit on that. As far as batteries, Waypoint, that's just, like I said, that's my method of dealing with batteries and going from there. Anybody else got any questions? Uh, any hopes and dreams? Because that is the space that we're actually in right now. We're in the space of hope and dreams. It's kind of sad that we don't have solid footing any longer in the drone community. Uh, we're on our back heels, and it's just a head shaker at this point. We don't know what may come out next. We don't know what the FCC may come out next because, like you say, back in October, they granted themselves special powers to regulate way beyond whatever they want to do. Basically, they're self-regulating now. They don't have to get no approval from Congress. Don't need no president's signature or anything. They can just wake up one morning and says, "That's it. We're not going to allow nothing in the sky unless it's a manned aircraft," and call it a day. So, like I say, it's a very unstable footing we find ourselves right now because it seems like the government has lulled us to sleep. They have, and I remember people were saying last month, December, early parts, when they heard these few little senators griping about, oh, the Section 7009 is not right. I said, dude, it was already voted on a year ago. It was already set in stone, already signed by the last president. They just set the effective date to go into action 1 year down the road. And all they had to do, because like I said, if you send a letter out to your elected officials, I pretty much can guarantee you they all say, I didn't vote, because they didn't have to. But they actually already did vote if they were in office in December of 2024. It was already voted on back then. So, like I tell people, it was a slick move by them, our elected officials, to lull us to sleep. And I said, I brought it out. I said, hey, what about this? Doesn't look right. And everybody kept telling me, oh, Dre, just take the win for it is. The drone community was not mentioned in the actual document. I said, it is mentioned in the actual document. They just slid it under this section. And I kept trying to tell people, I said, this is going to come back and bite us in the butt. And it has bit us in the butt, and now we have to live with it. And that's where we're at. So it's almost like we are I won't use the proper terms here, basically the bald-headed stepchild. And I'm already bald-headed, and I don't need to be nobody's stepchild at 64 years old. So that's where we're at, is that, we're just going by the whims of other people's. The AMA, I don't know what to even say about them. I've just been so disappointed since I've got into drones 7-8 years ago that the AMA has no interest in trying to be the voice of SUASs. They have no interest. Was it the AU, ADUS, whoever they are? They have, I don't know who's paying the bills for them, but they have basically just shut themselves out the door, thinking that all these American companies are going to be using them as some kind of reference point or whatever, because that group is just a collection of businesses and special interest people. And now you just locked out pretty much the majority of the drone community worldwide. So that means your influence becomes less. So I don't understand what their angle is. I guess they're hoping they're going to get some kind of favor from whatever. And my thing is this: all of us here who live in America look forward to buying American-made drones. We have always said that. Just like when I run to say, we would love to buy American-made drones, with the caveat that these American-made drones are on equal par and cost of Chinese-made drones. That's all we've ever asked. Now, what's always got me is that just about all of the American companies that have come forth, even before all this legislation has come in, you think back to a couple of the, what was it, the XEO drones, was a Hudson rebranded as an American company and stuff. That was about as close as being a consumer level drone by an American company that we're ever going to have. And that was basically a flash in the pan, rebranded drone that was actually made in China, another company, and sold here in America. And because of the slick talking individual who was the face of the company, when the hard questions started coming in, he just bounced, disappeared, you know. And then we all know the East Coast says, "What's up with the feedback static again?" I'm sorry, East Coast. I did hear a little bit. I made some adjustments, but I'm not sure where it's coming from myself, so I'm gonna have to live with it. But like I said, we all know the story of Skydio and how they came in with a big bang with their obstacle avoidance system and everything else, and they saw greener pastures down the road with government contract work, which anybody who knows anything with business or whatever, I don't care if you're making ice cream scoops to drones, if you can get a government contract, you're gonna bend over backwards to get a government contract. That is the it's almost like that is the holy grail of business itself. If you can get a government contract, that assures you of basically a good source of amount of money. There's always room for what we call what's the term we call it when a company has to come back? Around tip of my tongue. Basically, yeah, change orders. That's the term. Change orders. There's always going to be change orders, which means there's going to be more money asked for and stuff. If you work with any type of government agency, a municipality, whatever, you'll hear that term change orders. That contractors do that. Oh, we need to come back and add this or add that. It's called change order. And that always happens. Always happens. And that's why budgets get overblown and everything else, because change orders. So that's one sad part right there, is that when you can get a government contract, you get to play that game of raising the price of what you originally bid it for to get it higher or high as you can through change orders. So, yeah, that's it. That's what I say. Everyone loves the corrupt coins. So that's the whole deal with it, with right there, So like I said, we know the Skydio story, but one thing got me. But even with I don't remember. I think you could buy Skydio when they first came out, Best Buy and Amazon, a few places, and there weren't a few companies. Even that EXO company, you had to buy the drone. I believe you had to buy it directly from them, and that's one of the things I don't like with the current American drone business model, is that everybody wants to be in-house. They don't want to deal with no third-party distributors or franchise stores or anything like that. They all want to be everything in-house. And now the same thing with the other drone company that came out, which I thought was going to be the heir apparent to the Phantom 4, and had interchangeable lenses, and they had an office right here in Southern California, probably about 30, 40 minutes away from me, and they kept stepping on their own toes on their release. And I remember Ken Dono kind of trashed their product, and a couple other folks that had a big old giant controller for it and everything else. And the next thing you know, it kind of fell off because battery was the issue. Mainly with them, it only had a battery life of only flight time, I should say, only about 18 minutes, and that put it on the same level as a Phantom. But everybody was looking at what the Mavic 2 Pro was at the time, which it was coming out around 24 minutes, or supposed to be advertised as the Phantom was 28, and the Mavic 2 Pro was supposed to be 30 minutes. You know, and here this one was only doing like 18, 19 minutes. So that was kind of one of the killer things on that. I forgot the name of the company, but yeah, it was supposed to be American branded and everything else. But once again, you had to buy it directly from them. You couldn't go down to Best Buy. You couldn't find it on Amazon. You couldn't buy it from any of the mom and pop folks. You couldn't get it at Autorama or B&H. You had to go directly to them to buy it. And then they were out there having some issues as far as parts and everything else. So people were not getting their deliveries on a timely basis. So and the same thing, the Sony, was it called the Sony Peak? And Sony's Japanese headquartered and stuff, but once again, it was an inferior product as far as batteries was concerned. Only had a flight life of about 15 minutes, which puts you back in the era of a original Mavic Air or even a Spark if you flew it very cautiously. So once again, you're giving up something for something that costs 3 times as much, and this was the American prosumer consumer level offerings that we have gone through over the last 10 years. Okay, as much as it don't seem like, a lot of these guys were coming on board right around between 2016 and 2019. These products were out there, and that was the American offering, and so to speak, and they've all fell by the wayside. So now, like I say, if you can get that government contract, they're not dealing. Like I said, the government's, the same thing. They're keeping that in-house model, so you can't even buy it from anybody else at any other time, which is sad. Most of the drones I own today, I have bought through a reseller, a dealer. So like I said, I bought one drone at Best Buy, and that was my Spark, and everything else I have purchased either from DJI directly, or I purchased it through a dealer here in the United States. I remember at the time, DJI, you couldn't buy enterprise level drones directly from DJI. You had to go to a U.S. dealer because that was the business model that was being offered out there. So, like I say, I've dealt with about 2 or 3 different dealers over the years, bought multiple from some dealers, and that's where I have done my business. And that's why I kept saying over the last year, those people are going to be crushed. They're going to be crushed because they can't do like a Amazon or a Best Buy or even a B&H and Autorama. They can't just rely on other products, other type of things that they offer even before drones became popular. Amazon will go back and do whatever they always do, sell other knick-knack stuff and everything else. And like Best Buy, like I said, I've seen Best Buy go from a computer store, audio hi-fi store, and everything else. And then when drones got popular, everybody was going there buying drones. But guess what? Now Best Buy, you can go out and buy a refrigerator, washer and dryer, and whatever else and stuff, cell phones, all this kind of stuff. And like I say, drones will be something that you'll see in the back corner somewhere because they really don't have anything nobody wants. And like I said, those are people who are really going to be hurting, if not already hurting, per se. Because they will not have the inventory to really survive off of it. And that's what's sad. By making these decisions that they have made, they have killed off an industry to bolster another industry that doesn't exist. And that's the real fact matter. The fact is that there is no real consumer, prosumer American drone industry. And these laws that they have created here and put into action, like I said, it kills off a market of independent store owners and operators to support an industry that doesn't even exist today. And that's the sad part, that you're hurting Americans who some of them put the house up for a second mortgage, invested heavily in what they need to do to get this off the ground, and now you just left them out there on a branch in 50-mile-per-hour winds. So that's the whole deal. So I'm not going to keep you guys much longer. I'm not sure if, I think somebody said Art in his group may come on around 5 p.m. or something. I'm not sure what the deal is. Like I said, the Thursday night lineup has been kind of skinny for the last 6 months, so it's kind of been in and out. There is no more. I know Ken Heron doesn't do his, but maybe once a month, if that anymore. And who else used to come on? Tammy Jean used to come on Thursdays late, and some other folks and everything else. But I just wanted to fill in because I know it's been the regular programming for our usual week has been off. So I just want to offer my time to spend some time with you guys, let you know where I'm at. And like I always tell folks, I've been a big advocate of Part 107 ever since I learned about it. And like I tell people, even if you don't even plan on doing anything for compensation or whatever the case may be, getting your Part 107 elevates the industry, elevates you within the industry. And that it says that we are professionals at what we do. And I truly believe in that. By us becoming more professional of what we do, even if you just fly for fun, but you have that Part 107 status, it's easier to change the mindset of those who make the rules if we show them that we are professional and willing to be professional about what we do. So this is Dre, Recover One Drones. As I always say, hang on, enjoy the ride in life. If you like my content, please subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later on. Bye-bye.